Welcome to Rewrite Reality with Jillian Grace, the podcast leading the global shift in transformation through frequency, quantum healing, and energetic mastery. I'm your host, Jillian Grace, architect of energetic alignment, and for 20 years, I've been a pioneer of integrating self-transformation for thousands of souls. Each week, we answer the questions that keep you stuck and deliver high-frequency tools to heal and evolve every layer of your being. Join me to elevate your vibration, rewrite your reality, and activate the life your soul remembers. Welcome to this episode of Rewrite Reality. My name is Jillian Grace, and I'm going to be taking you on quite the ride this week. We're going to be chatting about anxiety, such a high-level buzz term that pretty much everybody will state that they have or have had at some point in their life. And how they've dealt with it is different, and the type of advice they've received in order to understand what it is varies from person to person. But I'm going to debunk anxiety in a way that you've never seen before, because you're not looking at a physical issue or a mental health problem. You're looking at a physiological shift that occurs naturally when there's different influxes within our earth and when there's changes in the electromagnetic frequency that we experience on this planet. And I'm going to be moving you through the documentation of this. I'm going to be talking to you about why it's happening, and I'm going to be giving you insight on something that you were told was a problem when actually it was far from a problem. It was your connection. It was your divine ability to be more and to know you're more than just a human. It was that part that we can't explain, that tells our heart to beat, that tells our body to function, that electrical impulse that runs through us. That is what is affected. And the effect of that causes what we call quote unquote anxiety. And it is far from something that's wrong with you. It's something that's incredibly right with you. So my objective is to reframe that idea that's been holding you back from your true self for quite some time and tried to take a whole generation and silence them to their actual ability to grow, gain knowledge, and know what their true self is. Okay, so for this episode, I'm going to be giving you a lot of facts. So it's not just going to be, this is what you should believe, and there's not a lot of information on why. This is going to be an episode where I give you the actual studies that are proving what I'm telling you about. And really quick, I want to give you some background on why I'm so passionate about this topic. So many of the people that I've worked with throughout the past 25 years that I have been coaching people to understand energy around them, the frequency of what they are, and really teach them how to become the architects of their own world. I have dealt with so many people who have claimed to be anxious and have claimed that's why they hold them back from some of the things in life that they want to achieve. And in working with them and understanding and getting them to understand what anxiety truly is without doing any specific methods that are taught in our mainstream medical care, they were able to not only overcome their anxiety, they were able to grow on several different levels, mentally, emotionally, and even their own physical self was able to shift out of that state of victimization or that state of labeling. And they learned to honor those emotions. Some of them went on to be incredible psychics. They went on to be incredible intuitives, and they went on to begin running their own businesses that taught other people how to tap in to that inner growth, that inner signal. This information is not anything that's new. It's something that a lot of us have already understood, and I want to make sure that the masses have this as well, so that you can break out of this old stigma that you might think that you're connected with. In addition to teaching people how to use this quote unquote emotion of anxiety and to understand it deeper, I also was able to make correlations between when it would occur. So working with hundreds and hundreds of people gives you the advantage of being able to see when there are influxes or when there's all of a sudden a bunch of individuals that are feeling the same thing that are totally unrelated, but you're the intermediary or you're the source that they reach out to give this information to. And what I found over the 2 decades of working with individuals and helping them to grow was that during geomagnetic storms, certain alignments, any kind of massive earth event like an earthquake or tornadoes or hurricanes or any kind of natural disaster that was about to occur, I would get an over influx in messages and phone calls from my clients telling me that they had horrible, crippling anxiety. That led me to start focusing in on why these things were occurring in such droves, seemingly to the mass population of people that were extremely intuitive and at least trying to work through what they needed to in order to grow. Why was that occurring so prevalently? So I started to track and I started to pay attention to it. And that brought me to a lot of what I do today that helps as an ongoing education for people as I work with them. So not only do I teach all of you about that quantum end of things, and not only do I teach all of you about how to be that architect, I also keep you informed when you might have some physiological things that happen to you based on earth events that are taking place that could throw you off balance, that could get that part of your mind to start to question and really push at you different thoughts that are going to bring your energy down, that are going to invoke anxiety and are going to try to prevent you from your growth because of the way you think about it. So I began this quest to not only give you the information that you needed and how to plug it in, but to also show you any of the pitfalls and landmines that you might be exposed to along the way so that you had information. And information is power. The more knowledge you have, the more you're going to expand. The more you expand, the more you're going to grow. The more you grow, the more you're going to evolve. And that's my goal. Okay, so I am going to throw at you some really incredible facts that I bet you didn't know in the world of anxiety. Okay, so now we're going to go through step by step all of the different things that affect you physiologically and you could misconstrue as anxiety. First, geomagnetic storms. Earth and celestial events that are designed and actually documented to influence and affect anxiety. This is one of the major ones. Any kind of solar disruptions, any kind of coronal mass ejections, any kind of disruption in the Earth's magnetic field triggers what's called geomagnetic storms. And those geomagnetic storms have been linked to mood instability, sleep disturbances, and heightened anxiety and irritability. The brain and nervous system are very sensitive to any kind of electromagnetic fluctuations. This is known. It can interfere with the circadian rhythms. It can change how you're emotionally regulating your entire system. Any shift in that, and you are subtly going to feel it because it's moving through you. You are electrical. So if there's an electrical disturbance in where you are standing, on the earth you live on, in the atmosphere you're breathing, then you're, of course, going to subtly feel that shift. So much so that there was actually a study in 2016, and there's been plenty of studies. This is just a study I think that many of us can relate to. There was a study in Russia that actually stemmed from the 1940s to the 1970s, where they related and paid attention to human behavior during geomagnetic storms and during solar flares. And what they found was everything I'm telling you about, increasing in the amount of stress hormones within the body, heart rates going up, breathing patterns becoming more shallow, the feeling or the physiological response of panic occurring in any individual that was exposed or in many individuals that were exposed to that event. So this is not anything that's new. We have been paying attention to it for a while. Just for some reason, the medical industry decided to call it anxiety and put everybody on medication for it. I wonder why. Okay, so a huge study about this occurred in 2016 where President Obama signed an executive order to prepare for geomagnetic storms, citing the potential damages that it could cause, not only to people and their emotional states, but also to structures and infrastructure. They focused on power grids for a huge portion of it, but the CIA's internal concern was that solar flares would trigger psychotic and emotional disturbances, which were largely ignored by mainstream industries at the time. But they were beginning to see that when there were huge solar flares, there would be an influx in the amount of psychosomatic events that were taking place. So to dumb that down, crime went up. Whenever there was any kind of major solar flare, it seemed like crime was increasing. People were behaving out of their norm. It also increased the amount of visits to the ER for people who thought they were having heart attack or heart related issues. So there was a mass understanding of this back almost 10 years ago in our country and even further beyond that. And we have been for a long time ignoring it and still calling it anxiety. Now I'm going to break off for a second and say that I've noticed this very early on in the work that I was doing. And what I was doing was working with people that were actively trying to understand that they're deeper than just a physical body. So they were actively trying to expand what we would call their spiritual energy or their soul-based connections. And what I realized very early on was that if the earth or if anything cosmically was taking place that was more significant, then the individuals who were working to move their energy in a positive direction would feel that. And they would think that it was something that was negative when the truth was it was because they were opening to more information or they were opening to a spectrum of knowledge that they previously were ignoring. So if you're not looking for or you're not paying attention to growth or any kind of development in yourself outside of being a human, then it's easier for people who are living in that more 3D state of mind to not pay attention to these things and therefore be less affected. But the moment you start to expand your information, or you start to expand your knowledge, or you start to expand what you are asking to receive, everything begins to shift. And you begin to open up to things that you potentially didn't understand before or couldn't feel before, just because your awareness is then placed there. And where you place your awareness, you're going to expand the information coming through. Our ancients knew this, and I always say our ancients. So in specific, this was found in the study of the Kundalini. The Kundalini, or the rise of Christ-like consciousness, or what some would call the Shushumi channel, which is a area up your spine that is highly affected and all of your nerve endings reach there. So your entire spine wraps around every single one of your nerves in your body. And that is considered one of the sacred channels for any type of increased amount of energy that you bring through when you are growing your soul or when you're growing from an energetic frequency level or what we would call spiritual. And what was found was during these practices, people would go through intense periods of anxiety. And let me pan out for a second to give you a little more clarity on what that means, basically. What that means is that when you are asking or trying to achieve a deeper sense of knowledge when it comes to yourself expanding spiritually or yourself expanding the truth of who you are, it is going to come with an increased amount of electrical energy flowing through you. Why? Because you are electricity. What runs your entire body is electricity. It's one of the reasons why if you have a heart issue and there's a problem and they take you to the hospital, they zap you with electrical panels to get your heart rhythm back in sequence, because that electrical flow is what drives everything in your physical body. So when you are calling upon a state of higher electricity moving through you, you are asking for more energy, more knowledge, more information to begin flowing. You are naturally going to have an influx in what would be considered your emotional state that would make you feel like you were having anxiety. It's a rush. It's a influx of electricity. So having that experience is not a mental health disorder. It's the opposite. It's actually you becoming more in touch with not only what you are trying to expand spiritually within, but also the knowledge that we're all connected with being able to feel these earth events and the things that take place on this planet with more synergy. And this has forever been a frustration for me because I've watched so many people struggle with this knowledge. I've watched so many people get mislabeled. And then as soon as you get caught up in that red tape of the drug cartel industry, AKA the medical industry, you then become a weaker form of yourself. And when you label that growth as something that's wrong with you, then that higher frequency that's trying to move through you carries a higher level of emotion. So from everything that we've always discussed about Hertz frequency and how it is higher based on the emotional state that you're in. So the key to manifesting is to get that heightened state, because that heightened state is going to connect you with the most like outcomes. So if you want to be happier and you lock into that higher state of happiness, then you are going to see the world and mirror and reflect that happiness in whatever opportunities it can bring towards you. So as you are heightening up that state and you're asking for more electricity to move through you, you're asking for more of that electromagnetic power to be yielded by you, then you are going to begin experiencing heightened states of frequency.
Before we continue, let's take a breath. You're here for a reason, not by accident, not by coincidence, but through divine orchestration, and these words were meant for you. This is your moment to rewrite humanity. Think of one soul in your life who needs this transmission and send them this podcast episode now. There are so many out there who are silently struggling. Our role is to reach them, to ignite something ancient and true. Whether it's someone you love, someone lost in the noise, or someone ready to remember who they are, this is your chance. Because vibrational awareness doesn't just shift minds, it realigns lifelines. It reawakens paths. It reconnects souls to their original blueprint. Be the bearer of that light. It isn't just generous, it's sacred work. Share this, speak it, seed it. This is more than a podcast. It's a movement, and you're a vital part of it. Let's rewrite humanity together, one frequency, one soul, one remembrance at a time. Now we continue.
And many of us don't understand those heightened states of frequency, because what our ancients used to teach when you were going through your rite of passage or when you were learning to take that next step in your spiritual evolution was that it was part of the journey to feel that way. And it was considered progress and something to be honored. Now, I get very stuck on this because I watch so many people suffer, and it's the one thing on earth that I do not want anyone to ever do, and I do not want anyone to ever feel, that I begin to get a little bit frustrated by what we've taught today's youth about anxiety and the level of people that I talk to that talk or constantly reference their anxiety as if it's some part of them that they're proud to represent holds them back. And that is what's misunderstood about that emotion. That emotion, it is soul evolution progress. It is putting yourself on a deeper plane of understanding what your truth is and being able to plug into it and allow it to flow. So I want to really encourage all of you to take a step back when you start to feel that you want to say that word anxiety and you want to label whatever emotion you're feeling as being anxious. I want you to pull away from that thought process, and I want you to know that you're greater. You're experiencing something that is more greater and more intense because you are moving through and learning more about yourself. So you're calling in more energy. It's a quickening. It's a deeper connective state. It is anything but a clinical issue. Okay, so we're going to move on again to some of the scientific studies and some of the scientific things that have been done to understand the effects of what goes on this plane of this planet, from geomagnetic storms to coronal mass ejections to lunar cycles and eclipses, so that all of you can understand that these are documented things that we already know. It's just the knowledge has not been given to the masses, which is why I'm doing it now. Something else they found in a 40-year study published by the Journal of Psychiatry found that during total solar eclipses, patients showed elevated prolactin levels, a hormone linked to stress and mood and behavioral abnormalities. These effects were normalized post-eclipse. So after the eclipse, everything settled down, but during the eclipse, there was that heightened frequency of a hormone being released within the body that would cause people to be hyperactive and would cause people to have quote unquote behavioral abnormalities. What it was found even in an analysis of social media, because they do this as well. So what our government will do is it will take an analysis of different buzzwords that it is hearing on the internet or that's being repeated on the internet. And then it will take those buzzwords and kind of analyze why they're happening. During any lunar eclipses or any type of, and even in the lunar cycles, if there was any disturbances that took place, what was found by the government was that through the social media analysis, there was an increased amount of people talking about having anxiety, talking about feeling like they were anxious or they were struggling emotionally, and they were collectively all discussing that this feeling was occurring during these times. So our own government is aware of this. Environmental stressors are also huge as well. So, earth events like earthquakes, volcanic activity, even a barometric pressure drop, they've been associated with spikes in anxiety and agitation in sensitive populations. So, what I want to say about the sensitive population, it's those who then start to pay attention to the fact that they are evolving on this planet. So the moment you say, okay, there's something greater out there, there's a higher level of Hertz frequency energy that starts to plug into you, that starts to run through you. And then you start to ask the important questions and you start to begin what is considered the journey of life, finding what you are blindly, working your way through the storm to find that connection of what your truth is. And by doing so, you are inviting in a heightened amount of energy. So if you were to take two people and you were to put them in a room and you were to take one person who has absolutely no connection to anything that's outside of themselves. They're very much everything is about what's going on this earth. They don't believe there's an afterlife and they're very self-focused. Then their Hertz frequency is lower than the other individual who is in that same room, who is actively seeking to find truth in what they are and actively seeking to expand. So you have two different frequencies. The higher frequency individual is going to be more susceptible to influxes of higher energy that come through because they're more sensitive. They have an awareness that's deeper. And when you're aware of something, it can affect you more. And that goes with anything. I mean, if you're aware of any type of injustice, then it can cause an emotional charge. So let's say you're someone who follows the news and recent events you're very well aware of. If somebody says the name of an individual or the name of a situation that happened in those recent events, then you are going to have all these physiological responses that take place. You're going to start to have all of these ideas that pop into your head, all of these emotions that start to occur. But let's say you're not even paying attention to the news and someone mentions anyone's name or something that's going on that's a little bit more controversial, then you're not even going to know what's going on. You're not going to pay attention to it. You're just going to move past it. That's what these studies mean by sensitive individuals, people that are actively working to expand. It makes you more quote unquote sensitive. And I don't call that sensitive. I call that informed. I call that connected. I call that focused on our truth. I call that people who are on this planet to shift and to make a change. I call that evolving. So I wanted to make sure that all of you understood that from a deeper level so that you could see that sensitive individuals isn't saying that there's something wrong with you that could be different from someone else, or there isn't something that stands out as being not programmed properly as opposed to someone who doesn't feel this. It's actually quite the opposite. And at any point, if you start to ask the deeper questions about why you're here, and you start to plug into those thought processes, you are going to heighten up your energy and you're going to start to feel a lot of different frequencies around you that you didn't understand before. And I have seen this shut down people from their growth in a heartbeat because they start to say, I felt so much better before I knew all this stuff or before I started to dabble into all this stuff. And the reason for that is because that evolution is so uncomfortable. When your body and your mind and your soul start to shift, it can be very uncomfortable because it's outside of the norm. And your brain or your ego wants to keep you protected from any shifts because anything outside of the norm is unpredictable and its job is to keep you safe. So it's going to come up against you and want to shut it down. So I want to urge all of you, stop using the word anxiety. Stop labeling it as a mental disorder. There are influxes that are going on around this entire planet at any given moment. So many of them on both my social media as well as my newsletter, I try to keep everyone aware of so that you can understand, okay, this is what's happening. This is why it's happening. This is why I feel this way. It's a good thing. I'm not going to read into it with all that negative mind drama that I do that puts me down the wrong path. And that's what happens when you start to think about anxiety as something that's negative, and then your mind starts to click into all of the narratives that were created in the past by you that cause you to feel anxious, then you're actually blocking that ability for you to feel those frequencies frequencies and you're holding on to it. So that's why people get stuck in anxious patterns, because the frequency is just planning on moving through. But when our human self jumps in the way and starts waving the flag, going, oh my God, why do I feel this way? I'm in the middle of a panic attack. I can't handle this. Oh my God, what am I going to do? Then you start to add your ego to that movement, and it stops it from being able to fully complete the path it was planning. So it stops it from being just a situation occurring during that particular event and becomes something that you're owning. You're taking ownership of that feeling. You're saying, I am anxious. Such a powerful, powerful set of words to put out there. I am. You're declaring that it's you. And when you do that, then you take that energy, you dumb it down, and you hold on to it so it can't move through you. So I want to encourage all of you to pay attention to the energy of the earth and what's happening at any given time when you start to feel quote unquote anxious. I want you to reframe the word anxious. It is not anxiety. What you're experiencing is an influx of energy because you are heightening your soul connection. And I want you to start looking at it as a positive checkpoint that's showing progress. Switching that around and reframing that changes everything. I have done this for hundreds of people. Trust me. It literally will open up the doors of what you've been wanting to step past in your anxious or your anxiety-filled situations, and it will help you to take the next steps in the right direction. Now, I want to say, are there people that actually just experience anxiety and that actually have like forms of chemical imbalances that cause that to heighten? Absolutely. I have seen that be the case for people who have had long-term issues with mental health disorders and were placed on medications by our pharmaceutical industries that have caused them to kind of stay stuck in that pattern. Then there's actually imbalances that start to occur within the chemicals of your brain, and you are literally having reactions for anxiety that are throwing you into panics that are specifically related to the way your brain function and brain chemicals work. So yes, that is a reality that can happen, especially if you go down certain roads with your anxiousness or your quote unquote anxiety. Also, people who experience major traumas, so PTSD, that can be a reoccurring frequency that occurs in your field. Also something that needs to be handled from the energy within you so that you can let go of. That's another situation where I've seen anxiety actually just be this physiological response. And if someone experienced some kind of a trauma to their head or any head injury where they've had multiple concussions or a concussion and the brain function is not functioning the same way. So in those situations, absolutely anxiety does occur, and it's not necessarily related to earth influxes. But for the masses out there getting told they have anxiety, you're actually just connected and you actually are a higher level frequency than other individuals and you're feeling more. You are primed for being someone who's wonderfully psychic or wonderfully intuitive, but you're being dumbed down and you're stepping into that narrative and you are doing that to yourself. So you have to try to pull away from it and at least give the opportunity for yourself to expand in the direction that you are designed to be here. And letting go of that label is the first step to breaking away from the narrative that has been holding you back and trying to purposefully prevent you from your growth for a very long time. Okay, and the last thing I'm going to do is quote a CIA program called the Stargate program, and it was used for remote viewing, which is absolutely fascinating. And I am going to do a podcast on remote viewing at some point because it's really cool. But the CIA did a long, decades run program to teach remote viewing, ESP, and other conscious phenomena. This actually still takes place, and a lot of the investigations that the CIA and both the FBI do, there are schools of people that are trained to learn about remote viewing and to learn about being able to use ESP to help aid our government in certain investigations that they currently do. And this has been going on for a long time. These studies that they found during that Stargate program showed that during periods of solar activity and geomagnetic fluctuations, the people that they were working with were believed to have increased psychic access and emotional sensitivity. This program is declassified and is revealed that human perception is influenced by non-local energetic factors. There was an actual sentence in that document. I'm going to repeat that to you. Human perception is influenced by non-local energetic factors. So there we go, everybody. This whole time, and the idea of thinking that there's something wrong with you based on just your ability to feel and have that cognitive understanding of that feeling has been shown to us. So I am going to encourage all of you. We need to stop this anxiety talk. We need to put it on the shelf. We need to stop trying to create mental health disorders in order to stop people from being their best. And for me, that is a huge thing that I always want to impress upon all of you. Anxiety is fake 99% of the time. The word was fed to you because it was a way to control your growth. And if the CIA itself can come out with documentation through a Stargazer program that it was using specifically related to opening up people's spiritual development, opening up people's psychic development so that they could use individuals for remote viewing and different types of tasks, and they can specifically say, quote, after a decades-long run program, it has been revealed that human perception is influenced by non-local energetic factors. I don't know what other proof individuals need in order to start stepping away from this narrative and stepping into their true power. And that is something that I'm going to consistently always remind all of you of. You are powerful. You are here to expand. And there is a lot that you need to understand about yourself so that you can continue to grow, and you cannot get caught up in what the masses or what the fake energy or fake media or fake powers around us are trying to feed the narrative for us to actually grow. And that's not going to be an option anymore because we're smarter than that and we're outgrowing them. Okay, so now we're going to move on to the questions so that everybody can kind of get a little synopsis of what a lot of people that sent in questions were feeling and what they were basing their emotions on, and the questions they had about anxiety and what it was for them. So I always curate and pick questions that sort of synopsize a lot of viewer questions that came in. And that's why I chose these questions. So I really want to encourage all of you, if this isn't your question, it is still wonderful for you to listen to it because you're probably going to get answers to your question through this question. So don't shut off just yet. Don't shut this out. My first question comes from Tandy from Cape Town, South Africa. And Tandy writes, why does my anxiety spike during thunderstorms, earthquakes, even when I'm not in danger? Could this be an energetic imprint? Okay, so when you think about a thunderstorm, what's happening? The lightning strikes are what? They're electric. So the electricity that is coming down into the planet, and your electric, is amplifying your own electrical state. So when your electrical state heightens, it's a quickening. So if you think of taking an electrical cord and plugging into a wall, the electricity that is moving through just got a more streamlined direction, or just was able to flow faster and flow harder. And when that happens, you're going to feel an influx of the same type of energy moving through you. So your heart rate will rise, your breathing pattern will most likely become more shallow, and you will start to have feelings that are like a quickening moving through you. And when we experience storms like that, there's a quickening because there's such a high level and high amount of electromagnetic energy moving into the planet. And this is something that is not rare for the animal world. A lot of us have dogs that react a lot to thunderstorms when they come in. And it was studied that dogs can actually feel the electromagnetic currents that rise in the air up to 20 minutes or more before an actual thunderstorm moves into your area. So their hair starts to stand. Or if you've ever, slid your feet across the ground and you create kind of like electrical pulse, and then you touch something and you get zapped. It is said that some dogs are so sensitive that they keep feeling that zap, and that's what makes them so afraid of thunderstorms. Now, our bodies being controlled by frequency, controlled by electricity, are also going to feel when there's an influx of electricity moving into our area. It's another one of those components of understanding that geomagnetic effect deeper, and understanding that frequency and that heightened state of energy moving through from a deeper level. We are electricity, so we're going to feel electricity. So of course we're going to feel electrical storms. Of course we're going to feel geomagnetic influxes. Of course we're going to feel any exchange that changes the level of energy moving into our ionosphere. So I'm going to urge all of you, if you do feel that during those times, what you want to do in order to keep yourself balanced and what you want to do to sort of help move that through is you can take some deep breaths and just allow that energy to move through you. And it's so funny because when I say deep breaths, I immediately step back and take a deep breath. It's such an ingrained technique to really help balance energy out. And it's funny because I'm here with my assistant, and as soon as I said take a deep breath, the first thing she did was do the same thing as I was doing, just take that deep breath and just allow that energy to move through. That's a great way of helping you during any electromagnetic storms. You also want to remind yourself that the only thing that you're feeling is the electricity from that storm, so it's okay. So knowledge is power, and being able to have the right inner dialogue to calm you down is key. Any type of relaxing exercises, turning on relaxing music, going into different relaxing yoga positions, even laying down in the corpse pose, and just kind of allowing it to move through, that's going to help you with that quote unquote period of anxiety or that anxiousness that starts to come up. But really, you're just feeling the energy around you because you are open to it. And it's a beautiful thing to feel that way. So don't think of it negatively. Okay, this next question comes from Lucy from Marseille, France. And Lucy asks, mainstream psychiatry says anxiety is a chemical imbalance. How do we change that narrative with scientific and energetic evidence? Okay, that's a big question, Lucy. So, first of all, I did discuss on this podcast that there are certain situations where physically there is an imbalance that occurs chemically. Those situations are if you took anything that would cause a chemical imbalance or a chemical shift in your brain. So, whether that is pharmaceutical medications for mental health, whether that's basic medications for different things that you are working through ailments with, or if you are doing things that shift your level of perception. So if you're someone that engages in recreational drugs, if you're someone that drinks alcohol regularly, all of those things can affect you and actually cause you to release hormones in your brain that are kin to anxiety. And that's actually a heightened state that your physiological body is experiencing. So it may not be related to anything outside of that, it might actually be an issue that you're dealing with. Also, brain injuries or injuries that can actually cause an influx of those chemicals in the brain. But outside of those things, if you're experiencing anxiety and you are trying to change the narrative, that's going to be an uphill battle. The narrative was designed to keep you small. And I think we're seeing that with everything, not just with what we're understanding about our bodies, but also what we're understanding about our connection, what we're understanding about our beliefs. Everything was designed to really keep information from you in certain ways. And there's a whole school of thought about that that I'm not going to get into. And it doesn't really matter because once you have the knowledge, it's there. You don't need to change other people to convince them that what you're experiencing is actually your soul evolving. That's going to fall on deaf ears for people that don't already understand that and aren't already functioning at a more heightened state of frequency. That's okay. Everybody's allowed to be where they need to be. It's not a hierarchy. It's the choice of what we're choosing to expand on personally during our personal experience here on this planet. So I'm going to encourage you to not try to change a narrative. And if you're going to say the word scientific, the scientific industry is so run by people that are focused on controlling that narrative. And the only scientific studies that get funded by any major donors or the government are people in that scientific category. They're going to say what they want them to say. You're not looking at real evidence anymore, anywhere, everyone. So you have to have your own real evidence coming out with your own intuition and being able to discern that for yourself. So I wouldn't try to change the narrative, Lucy. It's going to be an uphill battle. It's there for a reason. It's there to keep people locked in. It's a wonderful job up until now when we have these abilities to reach out and touch each other and give each other information beyond the lies that we're being told. So I wouldn't even attempt to go up against that industry. I would keep focused on the knowledge within myself and being able to share that and being able to share it with my peers and the people that are connected to me and being able to use it for my own personal empowerment. That is going to be a much better way to help this entire world expand rather than trying to go up against people that know what they're doing. I mean, you're not going to change anything. They're aware of it. And I'm not saying the doctors, I'm saying doctors are taught that this is what's okay. Shame on the doctors for not trying to expand their knowledge past that. But that's a whole nother different podcast that I'm not going to get into right now. Okay, last but not least, this question comes from Jade from Byron Bay, Australia. I've heard the Schumann resonance affects our emotional state. Is there proof that anxiety rises when the Earth's frequency spikes? Yes, there is plenty of proof. Some of the proof comes out of the Heart Map Institute. And what the Heart Map Institute does is it paid attention to when there were spikes in the Schumann frequency and human behavior. So it took several different people and it tested their hormone levels whenever there was a spike in the Schumann. And what they found was during spikes in the Schumann, people were producing more cortisol. They were releasing more of the stress hormones. Their physiological states shifted, so their hearts were beating faster, their breath was more shallow, and they were in a general panic state. That was an indication to them. And when they started to study it deeper, it focused in on the effects of the Schumann and what it did to people's bodies and how it shifted and caused quote unquote anxiety. So yes, when that earth frequency spikes, you're definitely going to feel it. Many people already are aware of that. And that's one of the reasons why on my station or on my channel, I keep everybody aware of when those spikes are and when they happen. So for those of you who aren't aware, it's jilliangrace.com. There's a newsletter at the top. And if you sign up for the newsletter, then you're going to get the newsletter every single time there's an influx in that Schumann. Every single time we're going to be going through a geomagnetic storm, I at least try to put out a real quick blurb to let everybody know, okay, this is what's going on, take a deep breath, and then just give you the awareness. Also, my Facebook, which is Jillian Grace, and my Instagram, Jillian Grace again. I do also keep people up to date on there and on X, all under my name, Jillian Grace, where when we do have these influxes, I make sure that the people who are in our community know about them so that you can step back, understand that you're being empowered, and not get caught up in that old school narrative of control telling you that you're lesser when you're actually greater. Okay, everybody, a lot of information for this podcast. I want to thank all of you for taking a moment to take a peek and to listen to it this month. I am so honored for every single one of you and all of the information that I get to share with you. If you have any questions, send that over to me right at the bottom of this podcast description. You will see how to reach me. And I am here super excited. I hope you enjoyed, and I'll chat with you soon.
You've just tuned into Rewrite Reality with Jillian Grace, architect of energetic alignment and pioneer of integrated self-transformation. If this episode shifted your frequency, share it with someone you care about, because one share can spark healing, alignment, and a ripple effect of transformation in someone's life. Submit your questions today at jilliangrace.com/ask and explore transformational tools, masterclasses, and frequency-based healing at jilliangrace.com. Join me every week to elevate your vibration, rewrite your reality, and activate the life your soul remembers.